September 30th, 2025. Feodosia, Crimea. The night sky turned red over the Black Sea. A swarm of Ukrainian drones descended out of the darkness and slammed into a Russian oil terminal. Within minutes, a column of fire taller than the cranes lit up the occupied port. This wasn't a random strike. It was a declaration. For nearly 2 years, Russia had hurled hundreds of missiles and drones at Ukraine's cities. But this time, Kyiv answered, not by enduring, but by striking back deep inside Russian territory. The overnight assault on Feodosia's marine oil terminal was a scene of massive fire and swift retaliation. Sirens wailed along the coast. Radar operators in Crimea watched their scopes fill with ghost signals. Too many, too fast, too low. Feodosia's air defenses came alive. Tracer fire, surface-to-air streaks, the roar of cannons. For weeks before that night, Moscow had followed the same brutal rhythm, launching barrages of glide bombs and Shahad-type drones against civilian targets. By mid-October, Russian factories were producing thousands of long-range drones each month. Hospitals, rail lines, apartment blocks, all hit. On October 14th, a glide bomb struck Kharkiv's emergency hospital. But Kyiv's strategy had already shifted. The doctrine was no longer absorb and repair. It was strike back, deep, hard, and relentlessly. In the 72 hours before that Kharkiv hospital strike, Ukraine's security service, the SBU, and its special forces units unleashed hell on Feodosia. This isn't just any port. It's the main fuel artery for Russia's entire Black Sea fleet. Satellite imagery confirmed at least 5 massive storage tanks and 2 critical power substations were engulfed in flames, a fire visible from miles away. This was just one more entry in a ledger of over 30 strategic strikes on Russian energy sites since August, a relentless campaign that is pushing Russia into fuel rationing and forcing its refineries into emergency shutdowns. And the war is no longer a distinct conflict for Russian citizens. The rear is not safe. In Belgorod and Bryansk, suspected Ukrainian drone strikes ignited fires at power facilities, plunging approximately 40,000 residents into darkness and triggering chaotic disruptions at regional airports. Russian officials made the usual claims, that they shot down everything, but the blackouts and amateur videos of burning infrastructure told a different story. What makes this possible, what has truly changed the game, is Ukraine's new homegrown long-range arsenal. This marks a major shift in capability. Kyiv has unveiled and reportedly used the FP-5 Flamingo cruise missile. This is a domestic program built in secret, with a staggering reach of nearly 3,000 kilometers, or about 1,860 miles. It's aimed at serial production this winter. This, along with other deep strike weapons like the Palencia missile drone, allows Ukraine to bypass any Western restrictions on the use of their weapons. Suddenly, Russian refineries, power nodes, and critical ports from occupied Crimea all the way to the Baltic Sea are at real, credible risk. The new Ukrainian strategy is brutally effective. They hit the same target multiple times in 24 to 48 hours, a tactic designed to block any repair attempts. Analysts have noted that each successful refinery strike creates a devastating cascade effect. It slashes Russia's hard currency export revenues and forces a painful tightening of the domestic fuel supply, right when Moscow needs every drop of diesel and jet fuel for its war machine. The net effect, visible in the towering flames over Feodosia and the spreading blackouts in Belgorod, is a strategic message delivered with fire and steel. There is no sanctuary. The war is now pulsing through Russia's economic arteries, not just bleeding out on the front lines. And when the smoke cleared, one truth cut through the Kremlin's propaganda. If nowhere is safe, then your unstoppable weapons had better be real. So Ukraine went straight for the sensors that make them work. Russia's vaunted unstoppable arsenal, the centerpiece of years of Kremlin propaganda, is being methodically dismantled in real time. In the last days of September, Ukraine's Special Operations Forces used a swarm of strike drones to achieve a stunning victory. They blinded a Russian S-400 air defense battery in occupied Crimea by destroying its radar eyes. This is the critical element that cues missile launches. Without it, a multi-million-dollar air defense system is little more than a collection of inert tubes. The unit publicly claimed the hit on September 30th, and local reports of blasts across the Leninsky and Feodosia districts were consistent with a successful radar elimination. This forces Russia to shuffle its scarce and precious air defense gear, inevitably opening up new gaps for Ukrainian missiles and drones to exploit elsewhere. And the hits just keep coming. Within 24 hours, Ukraine's 429th Achilles Drone Regiment released dramatic footage showing 2 Russian TOS-1A So-Insepyak launchers being obliterated near Kupiansk. These aren't just rocket launchers. They are $15 million thermobaric weapons systems, designed to clear entire city blocks and fortified positions with a single terrifying volley. Taking these psychologically devastating weapons off the field directly reduces Russia's ability to pulverize Ukrainian trenches and apartment buildings ahead of its assaults. Here's why this matters. The S-400 is supposed to be one of the best air defense systems in the world, rated to engage targets out to 400 kilometers or nearly 250 miles. But that's only when its radars are working. Remove this sensor and the battery's combat value collapses. Similarly, neutralizing the short-range but ferocious TOS-1A with its 24 tubes of 220mm thermobaric rockets mounted on a T-72 tank chassis saves countless lives and blunts the spearhead of Russian ground attacks. This all fits a wider, brilliant pattern. Ukraine is pairing cheap, precision FPV drones with long-range strikes to systematically punch out the critical enablers of Russia's war machine: the radars, the oil depots, and the power nodes. With the air shield now blinking and the thermobaric shock weapons falling silent, Ukraine shifted its focus from punishing Russia's teeth to choking its fuel supply. And for that, they looked north, to the Baltic Sea, where the refineries and ports that bankroll the entire war were now within reach. St. Petersburg, Vladimir Putin's hometown, just learned that the war has a 1,000-kilometer reach. In the pre-dawn hours of October 4th, Ukrainian long-range drones pierced the air defenses around Russia's second-largest city and slammed into the Kirishine-Eftorgzintens or Kyiv refinery. This is a crown jewel of Russia's energy sector, a massive facility that processes 20 million tons of crude oil per year, accounting for roughly 6 to 7% of the entire country's refining capacity. The strike ignited a major fire and forced operators to perform an emergency shutdown of the plant's largest crude unit, taking it offline for weeks, just as a previous strike had done. Russian officials admitted a blaze had occurred, while Kyiv publicly and proudly claimed the attack. The Kurishi hit was the exclamation point on a broader northern campaign. On September 12th, Ukrainian UAVs set Primorsk, Russia's key Baltic oil port, ablaze. The fires disrupted critical shipments at a time when the nearby port of Ust-Luga was still struggling to recover from an earlier raid in August. Oil traders reported that Russia was forced to desperately reroute crude flows and run its remaining terminals dangerously close to their absolute limits. Nationally, the numbers paint a devastating picture. Refinery downtime has surged to record levels this season, a direct result of Ukrainian strikes and the subsequent need for emergency maintenance. This has created a painful tightening of the domestic fuel supply and added immense pressure on exports, right when Russia needs the cash from its Baltic energy hubs the most. Here's the new, uncomfortable math for the Kremlin. Cheap, long-range drones are repeatedly punching through the air defenses around Russia's most prestigious and heavily guarded targets. They are hitting these sites again and again, with follow-up strikes in 24 to 48 hours to prevent any repairs. Each processing unit lost at Kyiv and each tanker delayed at Primorsk compounds into massive export shortfalls, pricier logistics, and fewer barrels of jet fuel and diesel for both the home front and the front line. Those fires don't just burn diesel. They burn time, money, and the illusion of safety. And that kind of pressure exposes weaknesses in the most unexpected places. Case in point, a black hole submarine, a vessel built for stealth, forced across Europe fully visible and monitored by NATO ships. A boat built to vanish was forced to sail in plain sight. In late September, Russia's diesel-electric attack submarine, the Novorossiysk, began an unusual and deeply embarrassing journey. This is a Project 636.3 improved Kilo-class submarine, one of Russia's quietest and most modern non-nuclear subs, nicknamed a black hole by NATO for its ability to disappear. But on this trip, it was anything but silent. It conducted a mostly surfaced transit from the Mediterranean Sea all the way to the English Channel, shadowed every step of the way by French, British, and Dutch warships. Leaks on Russian telegram channels suggested the submarine had suffered a critical fuel system failure that carried a risk of explosion. Moscow officially denied any malfunction, calling it a routine transit, but officials across Europe treated it like a breakdown in progress. Images flooded social media showing the limping submarine plowing along on the surface off the coast of Brittany, with a tugboat accompanying it. The Royal Navy's HMS Iron Duke confirmed it had shadowed the sub for 3 days before handing it off to Dutch forces in the North Sea. This matters because the Kilo-class sub, with its crew of 52 and 6 torpedo tubes capable of firing nuclear-capable caliber land attack missiles, is designed to stay hidden, running silently on its batteries. It is not designed to slog along at periscope height under NATO escort. This public spectacle is the latest in a rough 2-year run for Russia's undersea force. In September 2023, Ukrainian strikes on the dry docks in Sevastopol wrecked its sister ship, the Rostov-on-Don, with satellite imagery showing damage consistent with a total loss. Other Black Sea Fleet units have been sunk, hit, or forced to relocate from their home ports under relentless pressure from Ukrainian sea drones. Even Russia's most advanced nuclear submarine, the Kazan, suffered an embarrassing moment during a 2024 port call in Havana, where photos revealed missing sound-damping tiles from its hull, undercutting its aura of stealth. This is a sign of a fleet under immense strain. Combat attrition, sanctions that block access to spare parts, and the loss of secure overseas basing, like the naval base at Tartus after the fall of the Assad regime in Syria, mean that even small technical faults can turn into major geopolitical theater. The black hole just had its problems broadcast across the globe in real time, and as one of its quietest submarines limped home in shame, Moscow played its last prestige card, rolling out a massive nuclear battlecruiser to prove the fleet still has teeth. But in 2025, sheer size is no match for smart swarms. Fire and smoke have become the new silhouette of Russia's prestige fleet. As Kyiv's cheap, effective sea drones chew away at the Black Sea Fleet, Moscow is desperately rushing its massive nuclear battlecruiser, the Admiral Nakhimov, back to sea after it spent nearly 28 years rusting alongside a pier. Its nuclear reactors have been restarted, and it has undergone a massive weapons refit. Naval analysts say the ship has been packed with approximately 176 vertical launch cells, with about 80 designed for Caliber, Onyx, and Zircon cruise missiles, and 96 for advanced air defense systems. The ship left the shipyard for sea trials on August 18th, its first time moving under its own power since 1997. But this superweapon story collides with an uncomfortable reality. Russia's track record with its large nuclear surface ships is checkered with failures. The Nakhimov's sister ship, the Peter Velikiye, which was once slated for the same deep modernization, now faces retirement or being mothballed, its crew reportedly reassigned to the Nakhimov. Meanwhile, the problem-plagued aircraft carrier the Admiral Kuznetsov is likely to be scrapped or sold after years of embarrassing fires, dock accidents, and blown deadlines that have made it a symbol of naval decay. There's also the environmental baggage. Russia's Cold War legacy of dumped nuclear reactors in the Arctic still includes high-risk wrecks like the K-159 submarine, a ticking toxic time bomb. Critics have long dubbed these oversized nuclear hulls floating Chernobyls for a reason. The takeaway for the world is clear. Yes, the Admiral Nakhimov is bigger and better armed on paper, but it sails into a new kind of war, one where cheap drones and long-range missiles routinely find and torch prestige ships. It sails as part of a navy that is being forced to choose between projecting power and simply managing the dangerous nuclear housekeeping it still hasn't finished from a bygone era. The war in Ukraine has shattered more than just weapons. It has shattered the illusion of Russian military might, revealing a hollowed-out force struggling to keep pace with a smaller, smarter, and more determined adversary.